The night settles softly around you, like a long, gentle breath exhaled by the world. Before the story begins, before the ancient stones and moonlit gardens of Rome appear, I invite you to slowly return to yourself. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your jaw unclench. Let your breath become a quiet companion, moving in and out without effort. Imagine that around you, the room grows a little dimmer, as if evening has gently folded its wings over your space. A warm, golden glow, like the flame of a small oil lamp, softens the air. Shadows lengthen and melt into one another, creating a calm cradle of silence. The world outside becomes distant and light, a faint whisper too soft to disturb you. You are here, safe, and the night is kind. As you breathe, imagine a soft breeze drifting through an open window. It carries the scent of crushed leaves, a hint of citrus, perhaps even the faintest trace of parchment warmed by the sun earlier in the day. It passes by you gently, brushing over your thoughts and smoothing them like the hand of an old friend. Tonight, you will travel far from worries, far from the noise of the modern world. Tonight, you will step into a quiet place, an ancient place, where time moves slowly and peacefully. A place where a Roman scholar, long ago, tended his garden beneath the moon. Let the quiet flow through you. Let the softness take root. Tonight's story will be slow, unhurried, gentle, like ripples across a still pond, guiding you into calmness, and then into sleep. When you're ready, we'll travel back, fading gently across centuries, to a warm Roman evening, where the air is scented with pine resin, figs, and the earth after dusk. Take one more deep, slow breath. And let us begin. The story unfolds near the outskirts of ancient Rome, in a quiet district far from the crowded marketplaces and thundering forums. It is evening, one of those long summer twilights when the sky holds the last glow of day like embers suspended above the horizon. Picture a gentle slope of land, terraced with stone steps softened by moss. Between the terraces spread a garden, not grand, not imposing, but lovingly tended. Cypress trees stand like silent sentinels. Olive branches twist softly overhead, silver-green beneath the moonlight. Rows of herbs release their fragrance into the cooling air: rosemary, mint, lavender, sage. A fountain murmurs quietly at the center, its water flowing over smooth marble worn by decades of touch and time. Not far from it, a narrow path of white gravel glimmers faintly under the lantern light. This is the garden of Marcus Vitellius Lirano, scholar, scribe, and quiet observer of life. A man who believed more in the whisper of leaves than in the clamor of politics. A man who kept scrolls not for prestige, but for the comfort of knowing stories would outlast him. Tonight, Marcus has left the door of his villa open to the evening breeze. Soft lamplight spills out across the stone threshold, illuminating drifting motes of dust like tiny stars. Inside, shelves hold scrolls tied with simple twine, and wax tablets rest beside half-used reed pens. The scent of ink lingers, earthy and warm. But Marcus himself is in the garden. He walks slowly along the gravel, his sandals brushing lightly against the path. His breath matches the rhythm of the night, steady, calm, deliberate. He pauses near the fountain, placing one hand on its marble rim. The water reflects the moon, turning it into a trembling silver coin. In the distance, faint sounds drift from the city, a late cart rumbling, a dog barking once, the echo of someone singing softly to themselves. But here, In this garden, the night is mostly still. Only the leaves rustle gently, and the cicadas keep their slow, sleepy chorus. Marcus closes his eyes for a moment. He listens, not just to the sounds, but to the quiet beneath them. A deeper silence. A silence that has existed long before him, and will exist long after. The air wraps around him like a soft cloak. Warm, but not heavy. Comforting in its stillness. He breathes deeply, taking in the smell of the soil cooling from the day's heat. The garden is not just a place for him, it is a companion, a sanctuary, a keeper of peaceful hours. And tonight, as the moon climbs a little higher, Marcus feels that familiar pull, the desire to wander through memory, to reflect on the small, gentle moments that shape a life. In the distance, a lantern flickers on a wooden post, its flame swaying slightly. Shadows shift. The shapes of the trees seem to lean closer, embracing the night like old friends gathered around a quiet conversation. Marcus begins to walk again. Each step soft. Each breath even softer. There is no rush. In ancient Rome, time moved differently after sunset. Slower. Warmer. Kinder. And in this peaceful garden, sheltered from the world's noise, the night stretches gently, inviting you, too, to walk with Marcus, and to let the stillness soothe you. Marcus lifted a small clay lantern from the stone ledge near the villa's door. Its flame flickered softly as he shielded it with one hand and began walking toward the garden gate. The path beneath him glittered faintly with crushed white shells mixed into the gravel. The shells had been placed there many years ago by his father, who loved the way they captured the moonlight at night. Marcus had kept them ever since, replacing them slowly whenever the rain wore the surface smooth. Tonight, the shells shimmered like tiny stars fallen into the earth. He paused at the first curve of the path. Jasmine vines climbed the wall there, their blossoms opening only after dusk. Their fragrance drifted into the warm night, gentle, not overpowering, and Marcus breathed it in with the faintest smile. This scent had accompanied him through every season of adulthood. Every scroll he had written. Every quiet evening he had spent alone in thought. Every night he had wandered beneath these same branches. He touched one of the blossoms lightly, careful not to disturb it. "Good evening," he whispered, more to the night than to the flower. The lantern cast a soft amber halo around him. Its light fell on the gravel, on his sandals, on the edge of his simple linen tunic. The shadows it created swayed slowly, gently, like they too were settling in for the night. Marcus continued walking toward the gate. The world felt very near, yet also pleasantly distant, as if the night itself had wrapped the garden in a protective hush. Beyond the walls, life continued, but here everything paused in peaceful suspension. As he reached the wooden gate, Marcus lifted the lantern slightly. The warm glow pooled softly against the wood. The gate creaked faintly as he opened it. Outside lay the small outer courtyard, just a few olive trees, a low stone bench, and a view of the distant hills silhouetted beneath the moon. Marcus stepped forward, letting the garden remain behind him like a soft memory. He was not searching for anything in particular tonight. He simply wanted to feel the air on his skin, to let the night breathe around him, to let his thoughts drift like leaves on a quiet stream. Sometimes the most meaningful journeys were not to new places, but to familiar ones seen with rested eyes. He sat on the stone bench, placing the lantern beside him. The flame flickered, reflecting gently in his eyes. He folded his hands loosely in his lap and tilted his head back to gaze at the sky. The stars glimmered in their ancient silent patterns. They had watched emperors rise and fall, legions march and return, and through it all, the stars remained patient observers of humanity's small stories. Tonight, they watched Marcus, too, quietly, peacefully, almost fondly. A soft wind rustled the olive branches overhead. The leaves shimmered silver and dark, in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. And Marcus breathed, and listened, and allowed the night to unfold. Marcus lingered on the stone bench for a while longer, letting the breeze wrap around him like a soft shawl. The air held the faint coolness of nightfall, gentle enough to soothe but not enough to chill. Each breath he drew felt like a small offering to the quiet, and each exhale felt like a release of something heavy he no longer needed to carry. After some time, he rose, lantern in hand, and walked back toward the open gate. The wooden hinges murmured softly as he closed it behind him, the familiar sound easing into the night like an old lullaby. He made his way up the gravel path toward the villa. The small glow of the lantern followed him, bobbing lightly with each step. The light brushed over the walls of the house, warm, honey-colored stone smoothed by decades of sun and time. The shadows of the vines on the walls looked like ancient calligraphy, drifting lazily in the breeze. Inside, the villa welcomed him with its gentle stillness. The air smelled faintly of parchment, olive oil lamps, and the distant trace of lavender he had hung near the window earlier in the week. Marcus walked past his main writing table, where scrolls lay rolled and tied neatly. He had not added to the collection today. He preferred allowing the day's thoughts to settle before committing them to wax or ink. He paused in front of a tall wooden shelf, his favorite one. Each scroll on the shelf held a memory. Some were essays he had written about the movement of clouds at sunrise. Others were reflections on conversations he once had with travelers passing through Rome. A few were simple observations about life, the sound of rain on terracotta tiles, the way a fig ripens slowly in the heat, the first breath of wind before a storm that never arrives. Marcus traced a finger along one of the scrolls, feeling the smoothness of the papyrus beneath the twine. There was comfort in knowing these thoughts rested quietly here, unbothered, unhurried, like sleeping birds. A soft sigh escaped him, not of sadness, but of contentment. A life of quiet reflections had suited him well. He reached for a particular scroll he had written many years ago, a reflection on stillness. He didn't unroll it tonight, he simply held it, feeling the gentle weight of the past in his hands. For a moment, he closed his eyes. And in the darkness behind his eyelids, he could almost see the garden as it once had been when he was younger, edges sharper, colors brighter, the fountain newer, the paths straighter. Time had softened it all, and in doing so, made it even more beautiful. He breathed in slowly, deeply, letting the memories mingle with the quiet air of the villa. This room, this life, this peace. It was as if the whole world had paused, just for him, just for this moment. Marcus returned the scroll to its place and allowed his gaze to drift out the open window. The moon hung lower now, like a glowing pearl suspended in a dark silk cloth. Cicadas hummed steadily, their voices blending into a steady rhythm. He whispered to no one in particular. Another peaceful night. And the night, in its ancient wisdom, seemed to whisper back. After leaving the scrolls behind, Marcus walked toward the small rear door that led back into the garden. The clay lantern swung gently in his hand, creating a halo of golden light that followed him as he stepped outside once more. The night air greeted him with open arms. Dew had begun to gather on the leaves, tiny beads that caught the lantern's glow and shimmered like quiet stars hidden among the branches. The scent of mint drifted from the herb beds, soft and cool, calming in a way no words ever could. Marcus stepped barefoot onto a patch of soft grass beside the path. The earth was warm from the day's sun. He wiggled his toes slightly, enjoying the connection. Ancient soil beneath ancient sky, and he's somewhere in between, a small, gentle witness to both. The fountain murmured nearby. He approached it slowly, savoring each step, as though walking toward a dear friend. The marble was cool under his fingertips when he reached out to touch it. The water within glimmered with moonlight, rippling softly every few moments when a breeze drifted past. Marcus leaned slightly over the fountain's edge. His reflection wavered in the water, not sharply defined, but soft, blurred by ripples, as if the night were painting him in gentler strokes. He didn't mind the blurred reflection. In fact, he preferred it. It reminded him that the truest parts of a person were rarely found in clear outlines. He dipped his fingers into the water. It was cool, soothing, familiar. The ripples expanded outward, touching the marble edges, touching the reflections of stars. Marcus watched them quietly, enjoying the slow expansion, the way each circle softened as it grew. For a moment, he simply breathed. In or and out, matching the rhythm of the tiny waves. Above him, the olive leaves rustled in the wind. A silvered leaf broke free and drifted down, spiraling lazily until it landed near the fountain's edge. Marcus picked it up gently, turning it between his fingers. Its texture was soft, almost velvety, its color pale in the moonlight. He smiled faintly. Nature writes its own scrolls, he murmured, and shares them freely. He placed the leaf on the surface of the water. It floated quietly, carried a short distance by the gentle current of the fountain's flow. The leaf spun slowly, peacefully, like a small boat on an endless sea. Marcus sat down on the low stone ledge of the fountain and allowed his thoughts to drift. He thought about how the days seemed long in the summer, how the afternoons stretched lazily across the sky. He thought about the kindness of routine, of small tasks done with care. He thought about how the moon always seemed to keep him company, no matter how many years had passed. Far away, an owl called softly from a grove. Its voice was mellow, unhurried, like a note carried on the wind. Marcus closed his eyes, the lantern resting beside him, its flame moving like a calm heartbeat. Here, in this open-air sanctuary, beneath the Roman moon, surrounded by the quiet language of night, he felt a deep, wordless peace. The kind of peace that doesn't arrive suddenly, but grows slowly, softly, like ivy across old stone. Marcus rose slowly from the fountain's edge, brushing a few droplets of cool water from his fingertips. The lantern's light drifted beside him as he stepped back onto the garden path. The gravel crunched lightly under his feet, the sound soft and rhythmic, blending into the night's gentle pulse. He made his way toward a wooden bench beneath a tall cypress tree, one of the oldest trees in his garden. Its trunk was broad and textured, and its long branches swayed like dark green ribbons in the sky. During the day, the tree offered shade. At night, it offered silence. Marcus often sat here when he wanted to reflect, and tonight seemed like a night meant for reflection. He lowered himself onto the bench. The wood, worn smooth over the years, felt cool and familiar beneath him. The lantern's glow reached only partway up the trunk, leaving the upper branches to disappear into the deep blue of the sky. It was quiet here, profoundly quiet. But not empty. The kind of quiet that felt full of breath, full of ancient presence, full of the soft murmurs of life that only revealed themselves to those who listened carefully. He leaned back and looked upward. Through the branches, he could see slivers of starlight. They glimmered with a delicate steadiness, as if whispering stories that had been told for thousands of years. The stars above Rome had seen the birth of poets, the fall of seasons, the slow passing of generations. They had watched Marcus grow from a curious boy into a man content with stillness. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the cool breeze brush over his face. It carried with it the scent of pine sap from the tree, sweet and earthy. There was something soothing in knowing that some things, like the scent of a cypress at night, remained unchanged across centuries. His thoughts drifted like lazy clouds. He remembered sitting here as a younger man, scribbling notes on wax tablets about the shapes of clouds and the way shadows moved. He remembered his father walking through the garden, his footsteps heavy, his voice deep yet calm. He remembered afternoons when the sunlight filtered through the cypress branches like cascading gold. Those days felt distant, and yet tonight they felt gently present. Marcus placed a hand on the bench, feeling the faint grooves carved into the wood. He traced them thoughtfully, following the grain of the tree. Sometimes, he thought, the world reveals its wisdom not through grand events, but through moments like these, soft, unremarkable moments that nevertheless stay with you. A leaf drifted down from above, landing near his knee. He picked it up and rolled it lightly between his fingers. "It's the quiet that teaches," he whispered. And the night agreed. He let the leaf fall gently to the ground and leaned back again, sinking deeper into the bench, deeper into the stillness around him. The cicadas sang their low, steady chorus. The fountain murmured faintly in the distance. The breeze moved through the branches with an almost melodic hush. Everything felt perfectly aligned, perfectly calm, perfectly soft. He could have sat here forever, letting the quiet cradle him, letting the night breathe for him, letting the peace settle into every corner of his mind. For a moment, he wondered why he ever wrote anything down at all, when the night itself was the greatest teacher he had ever known. After some time passed, minutes or perhaps much longer, Marcus opened his eyes again. The lantern flame beside him had softened into a gentler flicker, as if the oil beneath it had begun to settle. He lifted the lantern and stood, stretching lightly, feeling the familiar ease in his joints. The night was not yet deep. There was still time to wonder. He walked toward the small olive grove situated at the far end of the garden. The grove was not large, just a few trees planted by his grandfather long before Marcus was born. Their trunks twisted in elegant spirals, their bark rough and knotted with age. Their leaves shimmered like small silver feathers under the moonlight. As Marcus stepped into the grove, the temperature dipped slightly. The air felt cooler here, sheltered beneath the rustling canopy. He let his hand glide along one of the trunks. The bark felt thick and ancient, like the skin of something wise and patient. The tree had likely lived through storms, scorching summers, and countless turning seasons. Yet tonight it stood calm and steady, offering its presence without asking for anything in return. Marcus loved this grove for that reason. It was a place of quiet resilience, a place where nothing hurried, where time stretched gently, like a cat settling into a warm corner. He walked slowly between the trees, the lantern's glow casting elongated shadows that swayed with the breeze. When he reached the heart of the grove, he paused and looked up. The gaps between the olive branches created a mosaic of sky, patches of dark blue dotted with stars. The moon peeked through in soft fragments, its light filtering down in delicate beams. Marcus breathed in deeply. The air smelled faintly of olive fruit and earth. A simple scent, a grounding scent, the scent of a life lived close to nature. He remembered moments from his childhood, running between these very trees, chasing fireflies with a small clay jar. He remembered listening to his grandfather's stories, the way his voice always lowered when he spoke about the spirits of the grove, and not in fear, but in reverence. Marcus smiled gently. Those were good memories. He sat down on a smooth stone near the center of the grove. He placed the lantern beside him and watched its glow mingle with the moonlight. Here, in this cool pocket of the night, he felt a deep sense of belonging, as if the trees themselves knew him, recognized him, and welcomed him. He closed his eyes again. The leaves rustled softly overhead. A cricket chirped nearby. The night wrapped around him like a familiar embrace. And for a long moment, he simply existed. No thinking, no remembering, no planning. Just being. Surrounded by the quiet wisdom of old olive trees. Eventually, Marcus rose from the smooth stone where he'd been sitting. The coolness of the olive grove had seeped into his thoughts, sharpening their clarity while softening their edges. He held the lantern carefully as he stood, watching how its glow mingled with the moonlight on the ground. He retraced his slow steps toward the villa, following the familiar curves of the path. When he reached the door that led into his study, he paused for a moment. Warm light spilled gently through the doorway, a contrast to the cool, bluish hues of the garden outside. Marcus stepped inside. The study room was simple but lovingly kept. A low wooden table stood near the center, covered with scrolls, wax tablets, and reed pens. Shelves lined the walls, filled with the accumulated wisdom of years, notes on weather, reflections on human nature, copies of poetry, lists of herbs, and small philosophical musings written in careful, looping script. A single oil lamp burned near the window, its golden flame swaying slowly. The light pooled softly over the parchment, giving the entire room a quiet glow, like the heart of a gently smoldering ember. Marcus set the lantern down beside the lamp. The two lights merged, their halos overlapping, creating a soft concentration of warmth that seemed to hum with gentle life. He walked toward one of the wide windows. It was open just enough for the night air to enter. The curtain, a thin piece of linen dyed with subtle olive tones, fluttered like a slow breath. From the window, Marcus could still hear his garden, the distant trickle of the fountain, the rustle of leaves, the whisper of the breeze moving through cypress needles. He stood there for a moment, taking in the harmony between the outside world and the quiet sanctuary of his study. His gaze drifted down to his writing table. On it lay an unfinished scroll, one he had started earlier in the month. He walked closer and unrolled it gently. The ink had long dried, the characters uneven in some places, as if he had written them late at night when his hand had grown tired. The words read, "There is a rhythm to the world that asks not to be mastered, only to be noticed." Marcus smiled faintly at the line. It was something he had learned slowly, through seasons of sun, wind, and soft rain. Through evenings spent alone. Through mornings spent watching shadows shorten and lengthen across the ground. Through small losses and quiet joys that have folded themselves into the fabric of his days. He dipped his writing reed into a small pot of ink, though he did not write yet. Instead, he held the reed above the parchment and watched a tiny bead of ink cling to its tip. The bead shimmered softly, reflecting the lamp's glow. He whispered to himself, "Another night to listen." And he set the reed down again. The room was peaceful. The kind of peaceful where even thoughts softened, melting into the quiet warmth of lamplight and the gentle presence of books. Marcus walked toward a low shelf and ran his fingers along the spines of the scrolls once more. He wasn't looking for anything specific. Sometimes, simply touching the scrolls felt like revisiting old friends. He chose one at random, pulled it free, and untied it slowly. The papyrus unfurled with a soft sigh. The writing inside was older, written in a looser hand. It was a small collection of reflections, tiny fragments of thought, each no more than a few sentences. He read one quietly under his breath. A peaceful night is not a gift from the world, but a gentle offering from oneself. Marcus nodded slightly. He rolled the scroll shut again and placed it aside. Perhaps he would revisit it later. Perhaps not. Tonight was not a night for productivity. It was a night for roaming, wandering, listening. He extinguished the smaller lantern first, leaving only the oil lamp burning. The lamp's flame grew steadier, as if relieved to be the sole guardian of the room's warmth. Marcus returned to the window and sat on the low stool beside it. He let the cool night air brush against his face. The balance of warm lamplight and crisp breeze felt perfect, comforting yet refreshing. Somewhere deep within the garden, a branch cracked softly, likely from the shifting of nighttime creatures. But even that sound felt gentle, blending seamlessly with the tapestry of the night. Marcus rested his elbows on his knees and gazed out into the darkness. And the quiet, patient night gazed back. After resting near the window for a long while, Marcus felt a familiar pull, an invitation from the garden itself. It wasn't urgent, merely a soft nudge of intuition, the kind that often came when the night was deepening but not yet old. He stood once again, lifting the lantern from its place. The flame inside had settled into a steady, almost sleepy glow. He carried it with him as he stepped out into the garden for the third time that night. The stone path leading toward the lower terrace curved gently downward. Moss grew between the stones, softening their edges, giving the entire walkway a dreamlike quality. Under the lantern's glow, the moss appeared almost golden green, shifting to silver green whenever the breeze stirred. Marcus walked slowly, intentionally. Each footstep matched the rhythm of his breath. Each breath matched the rhythm of the night. The terrace below was one of his favorite spots, a quiet platform overlooking the small slope where wildflowers grew in youthful clusters. The flowers now slept beneath the night, their petals closed, their colors hidden until morning returned. When Marcus stepped onto the terrace, the lantern illuminated a small stone balustrade. He set the lantern atop it and leaned his hands lightly against the cool stone. Below him, The garden expanded into gentle layers of shadow and light. The fountain shimmered faintly. The olive grove rustled quietly. The cypress tree swayed like a tall sentinel whispering to the stars. Marcus inhaled deeply. The air was different here, slightly cooler, slightly sweeter. It carried a faint earthy aroma from the wildflowers beneath the terrace, mixed with traces of mint and the lingering warmth of the day. He lowered himself onto the terrace floor, sitting cross-legged. The stones beneath him held the last memory of sunlight, releasing it slowly like stored warmth. He placed his hands on his knees, palms facing upward, open to the night. He let his eyes drift half-closed, not fully shutting himself from the world, but allowing the edges of the garden to soften into a gentle blur. Thoughts drifted through him like quiet ripples in a pool. He reflected on simple things. The way shadows move across the ground when clouds pass overhead. The scent of freshly split wood. The comfort of well-worn sandals on a warm afternoon. The trust he felt toward the plants that grew year after year without demand or complaint. The night offered him space to simply be. No expectations. No deadlines. No need to create or solve or understand. Just breath. Just stillness. Just the soft hum of the universe in miniature. As he sat in silent companionship with the garden, a single thought surfaced, gentle and warm. The world is vast, yet peace is found in small places. Marcus remained seated on the lower terrace for a long while, feeling the night gently deepen around him. Time passed in slow currents, so slow that he barely noticed how the moon had shifted, climbing higher into the vast Roman sky. Eventually, he lifted himself from the terrace stones and rose to his feet. The movement was quiet, and felt by the night, like a leaf drifting upward instead of down. He took the lantern again, raised it slightly, and began walking down a narrow set of marble steps that led to an even lower part of the garden. These steps had been carved long ago. Over time, wind and footsteps had softened the edges, giving each step a gentle curve. Moss grew along the sides, and in certain crevices, small night flowers opened only after dusk. With every step he descended, the air grew cooler, as if the lower garden held its own pocket of ancient stillness. When he reached the final step, Marcus paused. He let the lantern's glow spread slowly across the ground. Grass brushed his sandals, and a soft rustling drifted through the air as the wind slipped between the shrubs and low stone borders. This part of the garden was quieter still. It was the place Marcus came to when he wanted to listen, to truly listen, to the whispers the world offered if one moved softly enough. Tonight, the wind spoke in delicate murmurs. Not words. Not meaning. Just presence. Marcus moved toward a large stone slab placed intentionally at the edge of the lower garden. Some called it a thinking stone, though Marcus preferred to think of it as a listening stone. Its surface was flat and warm from the day, holding a memory of sunlight even now in the cool night. He sat on it gently. The marble beneath him radiated a steady, comforting warmth. He set the lantern beside him. This close to the ground, the flame's glow spread horizontally, lighting the tips of the grass and the edges of nearby stones with a soft, golden haze. Marcus rested his hands on the stone behind him and leaned back slightly. The breeze brushed against his face and slipped through his hair. The scent of rosemary grew stronger down here. So did the smell of damp earth, freshly awakened by the night. He breathed in deeply, letting the world fill his lungs with calm. The wind continued whispering, sometimes steady, sometimes fading, then returning again with a softness like a calm tide rolling onto a shore. Marcus found that if he closed his eyes, the breeze felt almost like a story. A story without characters, without conflict, without beginnings or endings. Just a soft, endless flow. He let that flow carry him. For a while, he drifted through old memories, not in sharp images, but in gentle sensations. The warmth of sunlit fields when he was young. The scent of figs picked fresh from the grove. His mother humming a quiet tune while preparing herbs. The soft scratch of a reed pen on wax. A quiet afternoon nap on a woven mat. The wind carried each memory like it was turning the pages of a book he hadn't opened in years. Marcus smiled faintly, eyes still closed. He whispered into the breeze, not expecting a reply. "Thank you." And though the wind did not answer, it brushed against his cheek a little more warmly, as if acknowledging his gratitude. He stayed there for a while longer, breathing, listening, letting the quiet wrap him in layers of tranquility. When Marcus finally opened his eyes, the night felt deeper, but also gentler. The garden no longer looked like separate parts, terraces, and trees. Instead, it felt like a single living organism. A quiet creature breathing in harmony with the stars. He stood slowly, lifting the lantern again. Its light had grown faint but steady, like a small heartbeat pulsing in the dark. Marcus began making his way toward the center of the lower garden, where a circular stone platform lay partially hidden beneath overhanging branches. He used to come here to meditate, though he never called it meditation. To him, it was simply a being with the garden. He stepped onto the stone circle. Immediately, he felt the warmth beneath his feet. The stone here always held heat longer than anywhere else, perhaps because it was naturally smoother, perhaps because the wind rarely reached it directly. Or perhaps because this was, in some subtle way, the true heart of the garden. The air here vibrated with a calm that felt alive. Marcus lowered himself to sit cross-legged in the center of the stone. He placed the lantern in front of him, and its light illuminated the edges of the circle in soft arcs. He placed both hands over his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, soft, slow, matching the lantern's flicker, matching the night around him. And then he felt it. A second rhythm. Not audible, not something he could touch, but something he sensed, an undercurrent of the world, a subtle pulse beneath the grass, the soil, the roots, the air. The garden had its own heartbeat. Not a literal one, but a presence. A pulsing calm. A slow, ancient rhythm that moved through everything. Marcus had felt it countless times before, but tonight it seemed clearer, firm yet delicate, like the quiet thrum of a harp string struck once, gently. The two rhythms, his heart and the garden's, did not merge, but they echoed each other. A call and response. A soft exchange. A quiet companionship. He closed his eyes once more. With each breath, he felt his body soften. With each exhale, he felt the tension of the world drift from his shoulders. His heartbeat slowed. The garden's heartbeat remained constant, patient, eternal. He whispered into the night, barely moving his lips. "I am here." And the night, full of ancient patience, seemed to whisper back, You always have been. He let himself sink into the moment, into the stone's warmth beneath him, into the air pressing gently against his skin, into the scent of leaves and nighttime blossoms. Thoughts quieted. Breath softened. The mind stilled. For a brief, timeless moment, Marcus felt as though he had become part of the garden itself. A branch curled gently above him. A breeze brushed past. The lantern flickered. And Marcus felt deeply, profoundly at peace. Marcus remained seated in the center of the stone circle until the lantern's flame grew noticeably softer, its small pool of light shrinking, its glow turning from amber to a gentler, sleepier gold. It was the lantern's way of saying the night had nearly completed its quiet arc. With a soft breath, Marcus opened his eyes. The garden around him felt even more serene now, wrapped in a deeper shade of night. The moon was lowering slightly, tilting westward, casting softened beams through the branches above him. Everything seemed to hum in a slow, comforting rhythm. He rose from the stone platform with unhurried movements. His joints responded with familiar ease, warmed by the earth beneath him. He picked up the lantern and held it close. Even in its dimness, it was enough to guide him gently back through the winding paths of his garden. The stones beneath his feet felt slightly cooler now, as though they too were preparing for sleep. Dew had begun to spread across the leaves, shimmering whenever the lantern passed near. The breeze brushed softly against him, almost like a hand guiding him home. As he walked, Marcus passed the olive grove once more. The trees rustled faintly, whispering their slow, ancient goodnight. He paused to place a hand on one of the trunks. The bark felt alive with warmth and age. Marcus closed his eyes briefly, offering a silent moment of gratitude. Then he continued on toward the upper terrace. The cypress tree stood tall as ever, its branches swaying gently. Marcus paused under it again, feeling the long needles brush lightly in the wind. The bench beneath the tree waited quietly. He sat down for a brief moment, just long enough to look up once more through the branches. The stars were still there, still patient, still glittering like scattered fragments of timeless stories. He breathed in deeply, letting the cool air fill his chest. He breathed out slowly, feeling the weight of the day melt further away. When he rose again, he walked toward the fountain. The water reflected the moon in a wobbling, dreamy halo. He leaned down to dip his fingers one more time. The coolness was soothing, like a final cleansing before rest. He whispered to the water, "Good night." Then he turned toward the villa. The small clay lantern cast its last circle of light along the path. Marcus stepped through the doorway, and the house welcomed him with its quiet warmth. The oil lamp inside flickered gently, casting soft shadows that swayed like slow breaths. He closed the door behind him, not to shut the garden out, but to transition from the outer stillness to the inner one. There was peace here, peace he had tended, peace he had nurtured, peace that had grown with him over the years. Marcus set the lantern down one final time. He extinguished the flame with a gentle breath, watching the glow fade into a thin ribbon of smoke that curled upward like a whisper of night. He touched the window frame as he passed, feeling the cool wood against his fingertips. The curtain fluttered gently in the breeze. He walked to the small resting bench beside the wall, a place where he often sat at the end of long days. Tonight, he eased himself onto it, leaned back, and allowed the weight of tranquility to settle fully over him. He closed his eyes. He exhaled softly, and the night settled with him. The garden outside continued its quiet pulse. The villa held its ancient warmth, and Marcus drifted into a peaceful silence, carried gently by the calm that had taken root around him. The night in ancient Rome deepened, becoming not darker, but softer. And now, as Marcus rests, I invite you to rest with him. Let your breath slow. Let your muscles loosen. Let your thoughts drift like leaves on a quiet stream. Imagine sitting in the corner of that tranquil villa, wrapped in a linen blanket, watching the last glimmers of lamplight fade. The air is warm and gentle. The scent of olive leaves lingers just barely at the edge of your senses. A faint breeze moves through the room like a calm lullaby. In this moment, you and the ancient world become very close, connected by the simplicity of stillness. Marcus's garden, timeless and quiet, reminds us that the world does not rush the way we think it does. The earth turns slowly. The moon rises calmly. Leaves fall one by one, not all at once. Life unfolds at its own rhythm. You are allowed to move at that rhythm too. You are allowed to breathe gently, to pause, to take your time. There is no need to hurry toward tomorrow. Tonight belongs to softness. Tonight belongs to rest. Think of the cypress tree in the garden, standing tall, patient, unshaken by the passing years. It teaches us that strength is not force, but presence. It teaches us that being still can be a form of wisdom. Think of the olive grove, its branches twisted with age, yet filled with quiet resilience. It teaches us that the past shapes us gently, not to burden us, but to hold us with the warmth of memory. Think of the fountain, its water flowing without effort, without urgency, simply because flow is its nature. It teaches us that peace is not something to chase, but something to allow. And think of Marcus, walking slowly through his garden, embracing the night as it embraced him. He reminds us that a calm life is not an empty one. It is full, in ways the world often forgets to see. You, too, carry that quiet fullness. Within you lies a small lantern, steady, warm, glowing softly even when the world feels dim. This light does not demand anything. It simply hums with your presence. It exists because you exist. Let that light glow gently now. A soft, golden warmth at the center of your being. Let it spread through your chest, down your arms, into your hands. Let it drift down your spine, warming your legs, your feet. Let it rise through your neck and soften your face. You are safe. You are warm. You are allowed to rest. The night surrounds you with a calm as ancient as the Roman sky. The stars above Marcus's villa are the same stars that glow above you now, steady, patient, timeless. And they whisper a gentle reminder. You have done enough today. You have been enough today. You are enough. Let the moon cradle your weary thoughts. Let the silence fold around you like soft linen. Let the softness carry you. If sleep has not yet arrived, it is already on its way, walking slowly along the same stone paths Marcus walked, carrying the same calm, bringing the same stillness. Feel your breath growing heavier, slower, like the lantern that dimmed softly in Marcus's hands. Feel your body sinking, like the roots of the olive trees settling into the earth. Feel your mind unwinding, like scrolls placed gently back on shelves. This is a night meant for rest. A night meant for release. A night meant for you. And now, as the final whisper of the ancient garden drifts toward you, let its message settle softly in your heart. Peace lives in you. It always has. Sleep. Now. Let the calm take you. Let the stars watch over you. Let the night be your gentle companion. Good night, dear traveler. May your dreams be soft, your rest be deep, and your heart be light.